All right. All right. Hello, 24/7 Mindset friends. All right. So I'm really excited about today because what's super cool is we're going to talk about golf and mortgage all day long. So, uh, Coach Conway, thank you so much for joining the 24/7 Mindset show.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Wally. It's a pleasure to be here, and it's a privilege to be here.
Yeah, well, I definitely appreciate it. You definitely so far have kudos for one of, if not my favorite guests so far, because you got my book in the background there. Nice touch. Nice touch.
Well, after our conversation yesterday that we had briefly out there, I thought I would share the sentiment. I'm a fan.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And do me a favor, hold up in the camera that book right above mine over there for the audience.
I got
Um,
a camera. There's actually a poster, so this is kind of part of this is my me room.
so never settle for par. So what's going to be beautiful about today is we're going to go through his 18 chapter book, Never Settle for Par, which is built around mortgage and how to be an awesome loan officer by never settling for the status quo of par.
Right.
So, what I want to understand a little bit of like, once you kind of give like a 60-second overview of who's Coach Conway.
So I'm from Texas, right? You ask me what time it is, and I'm going to tell you how to build a watch.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess I'm a dad, probably first and foremost, and well, I guess a Christian, probably first and foremost, dad, husband, former golf professional, golf coach. People always ask me how you got from being in the golf business and the mortgage business, because if you could choose one or the other, it seemed like golf might be the way to go. But people quit playing golf in Tennessee when football comes on. So and also it gets dark here. We're on the other side of the central time zone, Wally. So it's dark here like 4 o'clock.
Oh,
So
wow.
if you want to try to give a golf lesson after 4, you got to have a simulator because it's done. And most people want to do it after work. So I got in the mortgage business after the golf business. And actually, I never really quit the golf business. I think part of our discussion here probably be around that. And did that for about 14 years. Had my own business around doing a notary closing business, which I actually kind of gifted to a friend of mine whose daughter was ill with leukemia. She's been cured, thank God. And he may be a good interview one time too, as well, to tell that story. And then I got called into the coaching world in 2018 by a good friend of mine and a peer in the business, Tim Davis. So I coached for about 7 years, and now I'm kind of doing a combination of those things.
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So, when I had the crazy idea of writing a book. I mean, I've had honestly the crazy idea of writing a book for probably a decade.
Right.
I was a little bit on the busy side building a mortgage business,
Right.
and not just a little. And I think my goals, but God blessed me. God blessed me with rupture my Achilles, and I was stuck on the couch for like 6 weeks.
Yep.
And I had plenty of time to write the book then. So it's one of these things that I know you said you're a man of faith, and so am I. And this understanding that, not every tragedy in life is bad. Some can create a blessing from it. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So tell us about your story of like where did the passion come from writing a book? Where did that walk us through that story?
And similar to yours, I think there's a lot of people that would like to write a book. Good friend of mine, fraternity brother, probably one of my best friends, has told me he's always wanted to write a book. And honestly, he's probably 10 times more qualified. He does marketing for me. As a matter of fact, he was the designer of my book cover. He's one of the few people that's one of those brains that has the attention to detail, but it's also crazy artistic. It's hard to find those guys.
Yeah.
You get one, it's great. He could have edited my book as easily, and what I found out is, there's a formula to write a book just like there is to do anything else. So as I'm teaching somebody to play golf, I use grip, aim, stance, posture, gasp as an acronym to try to know what to do. It's kind of a formula like that for writing a book. So I'd always wanted to do one, but I'm a high SC on the disc profile. So I'm always getting ready to get ready, right? I've got a 1,000-mile trip to go on, and I'm not going to leave until all the lights are green. So as a coach, when you're coaching somebody like that, you've just got to get them to move, right? It's like Derek Sievers. We don't have a knowledge problem here. We've got an action problem. Otherwise, we'd all have 6-pack abs and be billionaires, right? We've got to get stuff done. So my boss knew how to coach an SC because he's a high D, and every time I'd call him with the question about writing the book, he said, "Wait, it just needs to be done." So he gave me the template. I don't know if that's the way that you went on, but the template was, what do you write about? You write about what you're passionate about. We're here in Nashville, Tennessee with hundreds of songwriters. I know a bunch of very, really successful ones. And that's what they do. They write about what they know, what they're passionate about. So it was golf and the mortgage business, sales business. That's what I'd done all my life. But then, the angle was, okay, then what? So he gave me the template, okay, here is literally the template. So it was a Word doc formatted for a book. That's how Amazon did it back in the day when it was Kindle publishing. It gives you like a couple, what size book do you want to make? You want to make one this big? You want to make one this big, right? And then how many chapters are going to be in it, right? Okay, what's the title of the chapter is going to be? And it just started kind of flowing into place. But the way he coached me, Wally, is really critical. Knowing who you're talking to, whether you're selling to somebody or whether you're coaching somebody. He was coaching the SC. Listen to the answer I'm giving. I'm giving a 10-minute answer to a 1-minute question.
Yeah,
but when I'd ask him anything about it, what do you tell me? What does this need to be? He said, "Wait, it just needs to be done." What about this part? It just needs to be done. So the answer to everything was it needs to be done. So I wrote it in 2 weeks.
Well, good for you. I did not write mine in 2 weeks. And I spent probably about 5-6 weeks on the couch writing it.
Yeah.
But
that's still pretty good for the volume you got.
Well, I haven't finished the story. And I hit this thing called writing block, and you don't know where to take it next. And I got like 5,000 words done, and the book has like over 70,000 words in it now, but I got 5,000 words, and I made a post on social. I said, "Hey, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but I really want to do this. Like, who do I know that is like an awesome, like a bad A at like being a ghost author?"
Yeah.
And I got like a recommendation of like 5 or 6 of them. Found it awesome, absolutely great one I fell in love with. And he was $75,000. But we literally spent another 5 to 6 weeks just on the table of contents.
Yeah.
Just on the table of content. And I think once we nailed the table of content down, it was a game changer after that, and everything else became, like, that's where I love the book called The One Thing by Gary Keller.
Yeah.
And Jay Papasan.
Yeah.
And I became a One Thing certified coach, speaker, and trainer. And I've learned to live the life by always asking, they call it the focus question.
Yeah.
What is the one thing such by doing it makes everything else easy or unnecessary? Yeah. For me, that one thing was hiring a ghost author, because he also knew how to self-publish. He also knew how to get the label. He also knew how to get the logo. He also knew how to get the colors. And I think once you realize in the mortgage space, we all can go at this by ourselves. And we hear a coach say, "Yeah, my coaching fee is $2,000 a month, $5,000 a month, $1,000 a month, whatever the coaching fee is." And you're like, "Oh, that's a lot of money." But you're going to spend the money either way. You're going to spend the money as a loan officer of the mistakes that you're going to make, or the lost opportunity that you're going to make, or you're going to spend the money on a coach that increases your opportunity and shortens your learning curve.
Right.
I explained that well?
Yeah, I think that nailed it.
Yeah. And I think it's, so you with your coaching clients being loan officers, what I love to kind of hear of, like, it could be a past experience. What is like 1 or 2, the loan officer was here and you helped them go there using Never Settle for Par?
So a couple of my favorites, one of them that just jumped right out at me is, people are always thinking it's about growth. Let's get more, and that's a good coaching question, because what we're trying to do is fill gaps out there. But I'm sure you've experienced this with people that have been on your team. You might have experienced it one time or another, is a lot of the really successful loan officers out there have done this at the expense of their family. So I've coached a lot of guys, and in this season of my life, I'm older, but I have younger kids. I've got a 10 and 11-year-old. I've coached a particular loan officer up in the Pacific Northwest area, and doing pretty good business, netting, probably $400,000+ a year income. So solid guy, super guy. Everybody loved him, but he just couldn't get away from the job. And he knew he wanted to, knew he needed to. So just coaching him on, how to create some time. I use a little bit of Carl White strategy on showing him a calendar. Here's Monday through Friday. Here's how you take Fridays off. You mark off Friday and like you don't work that day, right? It's just pretty simple. But it wasn't that simple for him because if the phone rang, he was going to answer it. So what we ended up finding out for him was, for two things. One, his wife said, you know what? We really don't need more money from you. What we need from you is more time. So hearing it from her, but making himself do that. So we started working out what's some goals you can get. Like if you've accomplished X, Y, Z by Thursday at 1 or 2, that you feel like you're allowed to get off, and what are you going to do when you're out? How are you going to redirect that? Who's going to take care of it? And he had a solid assistant. She could kill it, but just, he felt like he had to be there all the time. So what he started doing, and this was kind of his idea, but we coached him into kind of realizing it. He started taking his son to go on trips in the mountains where his cell phone wouldn't work. So he was just inaccessible. And what the crazy thing that happened when he started doing that and realizing that he wasn't, the only end all be all in this business, there's other people out there that could help. It started relaxing him a little bit. He started enjoying his time with the family more. And guess what happened to his business? It grew.
100%.
Yeah, he was just so much more relatable to the people, the realtors. He wasn't all, just on the edge again. And, obviously you got to have solid staff to come in and take over and the right systems to do that. But when he started, realizing kind of what the one thing was, what's his sweet spot, he grew. And not only did he grow in time, like 24 hours a week, 7 months, right? Not 24 hours a day, 7 days. Then his lifestyle improved and it affected all parts of his life.
And I think that's, I was talking to a loan officer this morning, literally via text. His name is Matt. Hopefully he's listening. And so Matt was a call center LO, came to me, godly, I think it was late 2022, trying to join Team Wally. And I was like, man, you don't have any business. We're established. We're already a $200 million team. You've got great talents, but I gave him homework and I said, here's a way to get business and let me know if you could get it done. The homework was to find a realtor, convince the realtor to allow him to call the realtor's database, past clients, and schedule annual real estate reviews for that realtor on the calendar.
Absolutely.
I've given that homework to like a ton of loan officers over the years and zero have ever done it. And Matt goes out there and does it. And he goes, hey, I got about $1.5 million worth of applications that just came in. I got my realtor like $30,000 in commissions this month. And then I got 2 loans I need to turn in. I'm like, holy smokes, who are you?
He did it.
So his first year with me was 2023.
Yeah.
Self-sourced, the dude tosses up like 15 million.
Yep.
His second year with me was this year in 2025. He's tossing up 30 million.
Which is nuts. I mean, that's crazy. It's a great year.
Crazy, right? Yeah, but what's super cool about that is the conversation we had last night and also this morning. I said, hey, tell me about he came back from vacation. And I said, tell me about the deposits you made into your marriage.
Right.
And he's talking about, they did this, they accomplished this, they accomplished this, they accomplished this. And I'm like, it's awesome. How'd your business do while you're gone? He goes, dude, like it did nothing. It stopped working because I don't have an LOA. I don't have an assistant. I don't have a production partner. I said, now do you see what I mean by you've got to build a team around you to be able to grow your mortgage business and also grow your time off. And I came up with that mindset back in 2016, which was I want to double my income and double my time off.
Yeah.
I don't want to do one or the other.
Right.
I want to double my income and double my time off. And it was great was Matt started to understand that. He was like, okay, now this is what you mean. So it's just, as a coach, it's an absolute blessing and a half when you transform lives, but it's really, really an awesome feeling when they actually implement what you're teaching.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's the disconnect there. It just goes back to the Derek Sivers thing. It's the action that's missing there. I've given that same assignment to a number of loan officers. I don't know if anybody's ever done it. There's a lot of things like that, and so the question that I got is, how do you get yourself to do those uncomfortable things?
I mean, like yesterday, I gave a referral. So one of the biggest challenges for a loan officer to implement what I teach them is how to keep other people accountable.
Yeah.
I was talking to a loan officer today, and he sent out like, I don't know, a crap ton of referrals that he sent out to his wealth partners. And I said, he goes, well, I'm sending out a lot of referrals, but I'm not getting many back. And my response back was, well, it sounds like what's role playing script practice, your Friday call. Well, I'm not doing my Friday call. Like, well, your Friday call is to call the financial advisor you just referred a client to and find out like
what happened
to that client and when can they refer you a client back.
Right.
And what was super cool about it, I got a perfect example in my inbox. I'm going to email it out to everyone once I get off this podcast with you, which was we referred a financial advisor last night. She responded back with a client on there last night and said, oh my God, thanks so much for the referral, John Smith. I'm looking forward to helping you. And then I private messaged her back via email and I said, hey, who have you met that is one of your clients that purchased a home in 2024 or 2025 because interest rates are lower since then?
Right.
She's given me three refinance referrals from last night's email to this morning's email because I was brave enough to ask. Right. I'm like, hey, I just fed you. How can you feed me?
Right.
Right. And I think the Kai McBride, which is now the president of 24/7 Mindset, said it best. He said, to get referrals, you've got to give referrals.
Right.
And he articulates my success really well, where I'm like, dude, I referred out to 120 referrals. I got 60 back. This is what you say. This is how you say it. But what's great about with Kai and my partnership, which I'm sure you'll appreciate, is I do an awesome job teaching the why. I do a horrible job teaching the how. Horrible. I'm like, dude, just pick up the phone, call the FA, and this is what you say to the FA. Like, what is complicated here? Like, I'm speaking English. Just pick up the phone. But Kai is like, hey, this is the mindset you got to have. Here's the shift that you got to have. Here's the framework of the conversation. Here's the script. Here's the email template. And I'm like, dude, just pick up the damn phone.
Right.
And it's pretty neat because again, that was a great aha that I had of like the inefficiencies that I had as a coach.
Right.
Which is I can teach one of the best teachers in the whole world of the why. I'm horrible at teaching the how. And with bringing Kai on a 24/7 mindset, what's now partnering the how and the why together, I mean, it's going to be bananas.
And I'm guessing you're a DI on the personality profile.
Believe it or not, I'm an ID.
Okay. Well, any mix of those. Yeah. What are they like? Pretty close?
They're pretty close. I think the best way of explaining me, I don't know if this is a positive thing, and hopefully we do not chop this up in a reel, but the IDs of the world get in relationship with you through friendship, then they're dominant once they're in relationship with you through friendship. Number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, also an ID, you'll find them in the center of the room. Yeah. Like if I walk into dinner and there's like 10 of us, I'm wanting the center seat in that, right? Because I want to go right talking this way. I want to go left talking this way.
Yeah.
But
I use networking events a lot to describe personality profiles because I coached a lot of SCs. And the neat thing then was, how do you get those guys to go network? Because that's not their personality profile. They'll network, but they'll network with just like the people that they already know. They're not going to go out and meet new people very well. Yeah. But what you can do is make it a task.
Yeah.
Because they're good at getting stuff done. So here's a task. And you coach them on, go get 10 business cards and ask them a question like, what would really surprise somebody to know about you? You write that on the business card, and then within 24 to 40 hours, you follow back up with them and said, hey, it was great meeting you, Wally. Well, I just wanted to follow up. You said what was, people would surprise people know about you was that your son beats you on the golf course 7 days a week.
About to disconnect this podcast.
Okay. You guys have a great game. Yeah. I love seeing those posts.
He beat me yesterday. He beat me by 1.
I was wondering how that turned out.
Beat me by 1. But he felt bad for me, so he went and got steaks and he cooked dinner for me last night. So
well, that's a nice thing for your son to do.
It is.
How old is he?
He's 20.
20. Okay.
Yeah. It's it was funny. I was walking down 18th fairway yesterday, and when I knew I was defeated, he's just so good. I knew I was defeated, and I said, you know what? I'm really proud of myself being a father.
Yep.
And the caddy was like, why? And I said, you know, every father doesn't accomplish anything in life unless they have children that are better than them.
Yeah.
And I'm a successful father that successfully raised a child
Right.
that's better than me at golf.
Yeah.
So, and Brayden was like, Dad, you're just framing it differently. I beat you today. I'm like, I'm going to frame it whatever way I want to frame it.
I love that. It's kind of like, I think it was Nicholas that got interviewed one time on the Carson show. And they asked him something about, you know, what's one of your best career highlights or something like that. And he goes, I never missed a putt inside of 4 feet to lose any major. Right.
Yeah.
And there was another guy on there that happened to be like a history golf expert. It said, no. There was this time back in and you know what Nicholas says? You must be mistaken. That wasn't me.
Wow. Okay.
And it was. But in his mind,
yeah,
no, it didn't happen.
Well, also, I think like when you study, and you and I are golf history buffs, and this is I relate this to mortgage. When Lee Trevino was going around on the tour and the circuit, and he would roommates with different people as different tournaments. And what's crazy about that is you'd have one course would have bent grass, one course would have the different types of grasses in golf. And if you're not a golfer, the ball rolls differently, has a different speed, has a different trajectory, it makes it more difficult to go to make the putt. And Trevino and Trevino's roommates, oh, I hate bent grass, or I hate this type of grass, or I hate this type of grass. And Trevino every single week, oh, I love bent grass. Oh, we're playing Zoysia today, grass. I'm like, oh, I absolutely love that. And I think that taught me in the mortgage space, if I go meet a financial advisor, I'm like, I love working with financial advisors, meeting a CPA. Oh my God, I love working with a CPA. And it just changes your mindset, and it just reshifts things. And I think if you're able to reshift how you look at things, reshift the lenses that you look through, everything works to your favor if you position yourself that way.
You'll love this story. It relates to that. Not that's I love that. I think that's spot on. So I coached college golf for a couple of years, and it was a hobby. It really wasn't I was still working in the mortgage business, actually, right when I started in the mortgage business. And when I left, I had to get somebody to kind of take over, because I love these kids. And if I'd have made a lot of money doing it, I probably would have never stopped doing it. But I recruited a kid, he was a few years younger than me, but he was 2-time Oklahoma amateur state champion.
Okay.
Great golfer. Played Oklahoma State. You can probably look all this up and figure out who he is. I guess I can say first name's Billy, but it's not the Billy you might think, even though he actually has the same name as the Billy you might know from Oklahoma State. Long story short, he told me when they practiced Oklahoma State, when they were qualifying to play in the tournament, if you don't know about golf, there's 5 guys that get to go play on tournaments. And they may have 20 guys on a team. I don't know, but you qualify. Sometimes the first 1 or 2 guys in the last tournament are exempt, but whoever's got the best rounds, that's who gets to make the team. Rain on days when it was rainy or like crazy cold out there, they counted that twice in the qualifier. So they put more emphasis on how you play when it sucked. If you know college golf, lots of times the weather's terrible. So the mindset of Tom Watson, I'll take. If you go look at the record book on when weather was nasty, he always outperformed. And he also always played well in the majors, way late into his career. You just think about in 05 or so, when he almost won at the British Open again in his 50s. I mean, been the oldest champion ever of a major. And part of it was he always played really consistently, no matter what the weather was. And he had the same mentality, Wally. It's just like, if you go out there thinking it's going to suck because the weather's bad, you already lost.
100%. Yeah. I think as a loan officer, though, you walk out there and you think you're going to go after ABC Realtor, but you go look up on Reddit or MMI that their biggest producing loan officer, their number one referral partner loan officer, is the biggest loan officer in town. And you're already psyching yourself out before you even get in the game to play. I'm like, just pick up the phone.
Right.
I mean, if you are going to spend all this time, do all this research, psych yourself out, lose anyway.
Right.
why don't you just go make a fool of yourself? And over time, you realize that you're actually winning.
Yeah, just don't look. I was at a company for a time, and we've all in the mortgage companies been at different companies, and we just weren't really all that competitive, and I knew it. And it got into my mind. Oddly enough, I lost a golf job earlier in my career, right before I was married, because they wouldn't let me off for my honeymoon. That's the golf business, right? He said,
Yeah.
I need to take off a week in May or June because just got married. And boss, you can't take off in June. I'm like, all right, so I got to leave. Started selling meat door to door, Wally.
Yeah.
Freezer in the back of my truck, literally selling meat. And I could sell the crap out of meat. I made $500 cash a day some days selling meat out of the back of my car until I did the math on it and figured out it really wasn't a good deal. And I couldn't do it anymore. So, when I was at a lender, didn't have really great rates. I left and went to another lender, but I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm never going to look at that again because it just doesn't matter, right? Because if you got somebody in the right program and you're giving them a fair rate, but you've got it structured right, that part really doesn't matter. What really matters is the great structuring, and the right program is going to beat the best rate every day.
100%. And that's where, I launched my mortgage company. I didn't want it to call it Aspire Mortgage Lending. I didn't want to call it Aspire Mortgage. I wanted to call it Aspire Mortgage Advisors.
Yeah.
And we only hire loan officers that have an advisor type of mindset.
Right.
So when you coach me through this, so I know my opinion on this, but when you're coaching a loan officer, it's more transactional.
Right.
Or it's more relational.
Right.
Which more relational loan officers are more like the advisors.
Right.
The transactional loan officers are more the order takers.
Right.
So if a listener on this podcast is a loan officer that is a transactional loan officer that wants to grow into being a relational advisor, what advice would you give them?
What jumps in my mind right now is going back to your mindset as a dad and turning that into a win, that you're helping him win. I really think at heart, you're kind of one or the other. And if you search yourself really down deep and you're looking at it and what I can do to make a buck versus what I can do to help somebody else out, the last couple of years in the mortgage industry might have been kind of difficult for you because it's been a hard time. So I think a true coach, it says in the Bible, the teacher is going to be looked at with more scrutiny. You've got to have that heart of somebody that's in it to help somebody else out. I would much rather see somebody that I'm coaching knock it out of the park and make hundreds, millions of dollars, whatever it is, than I want to make personally. And then maybe that's just a personality profile. But if you're just looking at where you're going to be, it's hard. I mean, I've been there before. I don't want to act like that I've just always made millions of dollars and killed it in the mortgage business. I've been right? Now, you and I talked about before, I was an okay loan officer. I wasn't a killer loan officer, but I really, really understood it. And I'm very technical and I love knowing things. So I find ways to win. So I wanted to coach these guys on figuring out, you talked about what your why is. That's one thing to understand. So you're not so transactional, but at the end of the day, I mean, if you're trying to get the bills paid, it's hard, man. It's hard. I'm just speaking from the heart here.
I think anytime you are trying to get a loan locked, and you need to get that loan locked, and if you don't get that loan locked, you can't make your car payment or you can't make your house payment, whatever the case is. I think commission breath is a real thing.
Yep, absolutely is.
And for the longest, I came up with this quote when I was 20. I got a mortgage when I was 19 years old. And I came to this quote, I think I was like 24, 25. And it was the mindset that I needed to reshift myself. I got in the mortgage business just like everyone else for the money.
Right.
And then you realize, like, if I can learn how to serve,
right,
I'll make more money.
Yep.
And the client gets a better experience.
Right.
So I came up with a quote called mortgage lending with a servant's heart.
Yep.
Mortgage lending with a servant's heart. That was the bottom of my business card since like the early 2000s. And I think if I can teach a loan officer how to have the desire inside to serve a client, serve a realtor. And I mean, Chick-fil-A does this phenomenally, but my pleasure and how do we serve you? And you build that kind of mortgage business, you'll never, ever, ever, ever struggle paying your mortgage or struggle paying a car payment ever your whole entire life.
Yep. And I mean, I'll want to give my wife credit. I mean, there were times when my business wasn't going great and it was important to have two incomes. There were times where it was also important. We saw this in 2008. A lot of loan officers had to give up their Lamborghinis, or they had to give up their second houses in Boca or wherever they were, because they were living well above their means. So what we coached, and the owner of one of the companies I coached at before was talking about, take all your refinance money and stick it under the mattress, right? Because the purchase business is where we're searching out there. And so you could get into a mentality, like you said, where it's not the mortgage payment, right?
Yeah.
So the other thing that I think is a great analogy with golf here, Wally, is, I was one of the better players. I was a big fish in a really small pond growing up in a small town in West Texas, but I was one of the better players in my district, in my region, whatever. But when you're playing in the golf tournament, if I ever got paired with the guys that weren't the best players on the golf course, I would typically just play good enough to beat them.
Okay.
And, I think we've got a lot of comparison problems, and we're comparing like our start with somebody else's finish in the mortgage business.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy. And, I talked about this briefly yesterday, Wally's very intimidating. And it's true. There's a lot of people, and I would probably include myself as one of them, as seeing people like that to be a little intimidating. My experience in the golf business helped me, because I've worked alongside people that were billionaires, sold companies for billions of dollars. You get around high net worth people, and what you end up finding out is, unless you can really be real with them, then they don't want to be treated differently. They want to just feel normal.
Yeah, but we give away so much of the secrets, allegedly, of our, I say secrets loosely. They're not secrets. A lot of them, they're common sense.
Yeah.
And I tell people all the time, like, oh, you're so this, you're so accomplished to the book and the academy and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you're comparing my chapter 20 to your chapter 2, your chapter 2. And the amateur's response is, well, I've been in the mortgage business 20 years, just like you have.
Right.
I said, yeah, but you haven't.
Yeah.
You've been in the mortgage business 1 year, 20 times.
Exactly.
Right. And when you look at that, I've truly been in the mortgage business. Technically 26 years, but I would say I've been in the mortgage business 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Todd Duncan taught me that originally back in the day, and when I learned to look at the weakest part of my mortgage game every year, every December, I'd analyze my mortgage business. Mm-hmm. And I focus on, okay, so what is the weak, if it's database, if it's realtors, if it's CPAs, whatever it is, what is the weakest part of my mortgage game? And I'm going to spend the next 12 months making that the strongest part of my mortgage game. That allowed every year to build on the next year.
Absolutely.
Every year compounded on the next year. Every year gave me leaps and bounds of success, which is the climb that I've had, hence when I write in the book. But most loan officers, unfortunately, they just repeat the same year 20 times and they call that a career.
Yeah, I call it whiskey barrel theory in golf. It's, if you're trying to fill up a barrel full of whiskey, we're not far from the Jack Daniel's distillery here in Tennessee. So I like to use that analogy. Which hole do you repair first? Well, it's the one that's the lowest in the bucket. If you repair these top ones up here, it's not going to do anything. So you got to look at, where you're weak. But I also appreciate, in your book, we're talking about hiring and replace yourself and getting coaches out there. Sometimes it's not getting yourself better in those, it's replacing, it's hiring that ghostwriter just to get up. And, I think people have problems with that, especially when they're starting their business, because we don't have the money to do those things. But I do think AI is going to be a game changer in a lot of that for a lot of people now.
Well, I think if you look at the climb that I had in 2013, going from 36 million to 24 months later, doing 80 million to breaking 100 million in 2017, and I was 37 years old. One of the biggest thing what I realized is, okay, I've got to systematize Wally.
Right.
So what am I really good at? Let's just say if I break it down, what my process or recruiting or prospecting, whatever it is, I break it down to 6 different lanes or 5 different lanes.
Right.
And I break that down. If I can replace myself in that lane, in that system, in that process with somebody better than me in that lane, then the outcome is higher. The trajectory is higher.
Right.
And you do that really, and you understand, okay, I'm great at a lot of things, but man, let's just say I'm weak at the lead app in the beginning of the process. If I can replace myself with someone that's really on my team that is really stronger than lead app, I'm going to have a higher conversion rate.
Right.
The higher conversion rate makes my high trust call easier, makes my lock call easier, makes my such and such. And when you look at that of like, the loan officers that I feel that have had the most amount of success are the loan officers that, instead of looking at what is the best part of their mortgage game and doubling down on that,
Right.
they look at the weakest part of their mortgage game and they double down on improving that weakest part.
Right.
You do that for a decade. I mean, you've transformed yourself in a light that no one else will notice.
Yeah, I like that. So I want to ask you, can I coach you for a second or ask you a question for a second?
Yeah, please.
So you said you worked 26 years, but 20 of those were growth. What was the big aha for you that allowed you to be growing? Was it just what you said there?
My 2013 was definitely a pivotal year for me, but I would also say it started really in 2012. I started reading a book a week in 2012. So what is that? 14 years in a row of reading a book a week. I mean,
book a week is much.
Yeah, and more than 50 books a year. But I've learned to study books. And the number one thing, I think the number one reason of my success, in my opinion, is when I look at a book, and I'll do the same thing with your book once it comes on Amazon today. So when I look at a book, I'll read the book, I'll listen to the audio, I'll follow along my finger as I'm reading the book. And to the right, I've got a journal. And there's a line down the middle of each journal. Mm-hmm. On the left-hand side of the journal are the ahas that I learned, new things I've learned from the book.
Yeah.
On the right-hand side of the journal, I break down what are in open boxes. I learned this from Michael Mayer. Open boxes of what I want to implement.
Yeah.
Okay. So then once I've completed the book, I map out, okay, let's just say there's 9 things I want to implement. Here are the 3 I want to implement in the next 30 days. Here are the 3 I want to implement in the next 60 days. Here's the 3 I want to implement in the next 90 days. Then I reach out to the author. I add those 2 attachments. Here's a list of everything I learned from your book. Here's a list of things that next 90 days I want to implement in your book. I'd love to get on a 30-minute Zoom or 15-minute Zoom or have a coffee with you if they're local and pick your brain so I can be successful implementing your teachings.
That's awesome, man. I never have thought about that before. That's incredible.
I'd say 45, 50% on average of every author I reached out to, from Robert Kiyosaki to Richard Branson to like all these great mentors I've had my whole entire career, are so welcoming.
Yeah.
Because everybody's book that they ever write is like the history of what made you. The 24/7 mindset is 1000% embodies who Wally is. And if someone's going to study who Wally is, then come up with a roadmap of what they learned, and then also come up with a roadmap of what they're going to implement and by when they're going to implement it. Like, I want that person in my life.
So there's a story about John Maxwell when he got introduced to John Wooden. He just really didn't want to meet John Wooden. So we're switching for, sorry, my camera's getting a little dark. The sun's going back behind the clouds a little bit here. So I'm not going to adjust it. I have to put my hand up. But so he'd always wanted to meet John Wooden. You think Maxwell would just call him up, but it's like he doesn't have the guy's PR agent or anything like that. But he was meeting with someone, and one of the questions he typically asks somebody is, who's somebody that that you think would be good for me to meet? And so this guy says, would you like to meet John Wooden? He goes, would I like to meet John Wooden? Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Right. And he's like, yeah, I'll get introduced to him. So when you're up here doing, you're coming up here. So he was. So he's like, I'll set you up and set you up for lunch with him. So Maxwell already knew a lot about him, became a student, went and got everything that he'd ever written. And when he sat down for dinner with him for like an hour, he's just like going through his books and telling him all the things, that he got and wanted to ask more like that. And of course, the dinner finally came to an end. I think they stretched it out to a 2-hour dinner instead of a 1-hour dinner. And Wooden's like, I've got to go, but would you like to come by the house? And so he actually invited him to come over. So even John Maxwell's got heroes out there. But I love that because it showed the respect, because Wooden said, nobody has ever come to me being such a student of my material. Right?
I think for sure. But also, I mean, there is, I'm a huge student of Dave Savage's material. I'm a huge student of Todd Duncan's material. I'm a huge student of Barry Habib's material. I think when you look at like how successful Kobe Bryant was in basketball, but he accredits all his success or majority of his success to how much he studied Michael Jordan.
Yeah, I could see that.
And when you look at that, it's like if we've got all these greats in the mortgage industry out there, why are we not studying the roadmap of their success to learning how to reduplicate it for ourselves?
Yep. I mean, do you think a lot of them? Well, I will tell you, I've studied a lot of that in preparation for today. I went back and looked at something that Dave Savage wrote. I think it was 2005. I'll have to go look at it, but it's called The Art of Referrals.
Okay.
Because in preparing for this, we were talking a little bit about reverse mortgage. I don't want to go off there because we don't know if we have time to go there, but it was talking about how he recommended that you approach like CPAs or financial planners, because I think a lot of people in the mortgage business get intimidated by that. But I mean, I've kept material that's that old. I've been in the mortgage business 2 years when I first got that from Dave. And I can't remember. I think it was 970 something financial planners that he interviewed in like a year when he first started. It's nuts, man. It was crazy. But to learn, one of the things he did is he went through and saw who was advertising. Back in the day, it was like probably like newspaper ads or magazines ads, because he figured if they're putting ads in a magazine or a newspaper, they're probably growing their practice. They're in that phase. And so that's going to make them more approachable.
Yeah. And that's where I feel like Dave's brilliant, but I want to get to your book a little bit. So talk to me a little bit about chapter 12. Okay. Find your niche.
Yeah.
What as a loan officer that reads your book, what do you want that chapter to mean to them?
Yeah. I mean, explaining kind of what it meant to me. I told you the story. I was at this big success summit that they had in Nashville. I think the year was maybe a couple of years after the mortgage meltdown, 11, 10, right in through there. And similar to like on church on Sundays, they tell you to turn around in the audience and introduce yourself to 5 or 6 people. And so I shook, I think, 5 or 6 hands, and 3 of them did the exact same thing I did. They're all in the mortgage industry. So it started to make me think about, how are you going to differentiate yourself in the mortgage industry? Some people do it by product. You got people that are VA specialists, or you got people that are maybe, short-term rental or DSCR specialists or what have you. And what I started realizing is you don't necessarily have to be a product specialist, although it can help, but you do have to have some way to kind of brand yourself that's going to help you set out. So when I was going to a pretty large church, there was probably a dozen people there that could write a mortgage for all the people in church. But you know how many people are golf professionals there?
Not very many.
One, or it had been a golf professional. One, it was me. And that's what I'd always been known at. And for a long time, I tried to figure out, I want to go brand myself as a mortgage guy. But what I figured out is I probably had more experience at the end of the day, it's conversations that lead to loans, right? In one way or another, conversations lead to closings, borrowing something from my friend Tim Davis. So what is going to allow you to have more conversations? Yes, you want to have conversations with the right people. But for me, it was golf. When I looked at my business and around that same time on where most of my business had come from, 66 to 75% of my business was either from somebody that I knew from golf or somebody that they'd introduced me to. So it was almost critical to my business. And, if you're going to pick a niche, like a way to brand yourself, and I've coached people around this before, people that were trying to go from, they're doing 100% financing loans, they're doing USDA or rural or first-time homebuyer, and I've got nothing against those. But if you've been solely in the first-time homebuyer market, last few years might have been hard for you, especially in my market, probably in your market as well, because the median income can't buy the median priced house.
Yeah.
Right. So if that's your soul, you kind of had to reinvent yourself. So I started coaching people around, okay, how do you redefine who your sphere is? Because if your sphere is, they'd say that you're the amalgamation of the 5 or 6 friends that are closest to you, income wise and otherwise. If the people you're hanging out with, and I've been coached realtors around this, are making $35,000, $40,000 a year, you're going to have a problem finding any business. So I'm not saying that, you're going to fake it till you make it, but I forget the author that it was, one of the Carnegies or somebody like that, said if you had to start over again, they asked him what he would do. And he said, I'd, find whatever job I could find, save up enough money to find one good suit and figure out where it is that all the people that are the movers and shakers are going. And if I can only go to lunch or dinner there once a month, I'm going to go. Because your next best opportunity, whether it's in the mortgage business or in a job, is probably going to come more from somebody you know than what you know. So it's a relational business.
There was, again, 2012, 2013 is really pivotal for me. And I remember being in a Keller Williams class in Austin, Texas with Gary Keller. And Gary was teaching his new course that he came out with called Career Visioning. Back then it was called Recruit Select. But he recommended a book that absolutely top 5 best books I've ever read. And he recommended Positioning and Niching by Jack Reese.
Got to write that one down. I have to go back and watch this.
Jack Reese, one of the most brilliant people I ever met. But so the book teaches, and what he was teaching is positioning and niching. The way that you build a monopoly in the mortgage business or any kind of business out there, you find out where you go where a growing niche is, and you become number one producer in that growing niche. And when I started focusing on my mortgage business, I looked around and I said, okay, I'm not that great at open houses. Right. I'm not that great at I'm good at realtors. I'm not that great at this, but what I'm phenomenal is database.
Yeah.
I will, I don't really mean this as humbly as possible, but what we've got built for 24/7 mindset, what I built my mortgage career and the 6-lane highway and be able to build database wise, I compare that to any loan officer out there in the world. But the point I'm trying to make is my niche became database.
Right.
My niche became how to turn your database into a data bank, how to pull out referrals for the CPAs, financial advisors. And once I started focusing on my niche, and that was my value proposition, and then teaching my niche to my realtors.
Right. Yes, because it works for everybody that's in business.
It works for everyone, but my database, and speaking of Dave Savage, we did a mortgage coach show back in 2020. And my database went from 2,000 past clients in 2019 to 11,000 past clients in 2020. I did not close 9,000 loans.
Right.
But I was able to adopt my realtors' databases, adopt my CPAs' databases, adopt family will attorneys' databases, and that now there's 28,000 households in my database, in my Jungo, in my mortgage coach, in my HomeBot, in my sales boomerang. And what's great about that is now the technologies, when a CPA's past client raise their hand in HomeBot wanting to buy a house, I don't pick up the phone and call them. I reach out to the CPA and I say, hey, we sent you 16 referrals last quarter. I will 1 year past clients in your databases raise their hand or just listed their house or whatever. Can you reach out to them and introduce them to me? Okay. They want to continuously get my referrals, but it's a niche. It's a system, right? And building that niche for realtors, building that niche for CPAs, financial advisors, and helping them grow their business by being a go-giver, it's 100% reason why I went from 100 million in 2019 to 200 million and beyond from there.
I love that. I mean, and I love that you say that that's a niche, because most people are thinking like VA loans or, whatever. So it doesn't have to be a loan product. And for me, it was more of a brand, because you need to be known, liked, and trust, right? And sure. I love that you're flipping the script around on. And I think that's where so many loan officers is nobody wants to go to a realtor and say, give me some business. You've got to bring some value. And I got hung up on this at one time. So I thought I'd share this because I was reading like, what exactly is value? Because, it's like you want to add value. As a coach, you're not going to have a job unless you add value. Or as a loan officer, realtors aren't going to send you business. But at the end of the day, it's pretty simple. It's either giving some people more of something they want or taking away something that they don't want. That's in a nutshell is adding value. So, if you're having a problem figuring that out, you shared reaching out to the authors just by saying, hey, I've went and ingested all this, and now I want to come back to you and ask you questions. I mean, that's really stroking an author's ego. And, they want to hear that kind of stuff. We can do the same thing with CPAs, financial planners. People are like, what do they need? Well, like all of us, they need to keep in contact with their past clients, and they need excuses to reach out for them. So it may be something as simple as saying, hey, are you working with anybody out there that owns real estate? Yeah. Would it help you to know kind of what current values are? So you got tools like HomeBot and things like that are communicating with them. So that's an introduction that you get there. You're not asking for anything. You're just sharing something. Then give them an excuse to reach out to their clients they already have.
So absolutely brilliant. And I love that. the only thing I'd add to that is for us to add value, we have to be valuable.
Right.
For us to add value, we have to be valuable. And the only way you can be valuable to a referral partner is know what the referral partner
What
wants.
you want. Mm-hmm.
And if you're not a good listener and you talk all the time and you don't digest and you don't get buy-in through a conversation, you're never going to know what's important to them.
Right.
And I mean, Michael Mayer's got a great analogy that I learned this from him back in 2013, 2014. He said, every conversation should have the 3.5 most powerful questions. I'm like, what is the 3.5 most powerful questions?
Come on.
Like, tell me. And he goes, what is your biggest challenge in your business today?
Yeah.
What have you tried to do to solve the biggest challenge in your business today? What are you going to try next to solve that biggest challenge in your business today? And the half is simply buy when. And when you look at that, it's conversational. It's not interrogation. But when you sit down with any loan officer sits down with a realtor, you're asking them the 3.5 most powerful questions. By the time you get to the half, they don't know what they're going to do next.
Yeah.
So my perfect example, I am like Mr. Google King or Mr. YouTube King.
It's already there, right?
Of researching it, right? And I said, I'm not the expert on ABC biggest challenge that you have in your business, but I'm blessed to know a lot of great real estate professionals nationwide. Do me a favor, give me a week. What I'll do is I'll go do all the research for you, and I'll come back with the top three easiest, best solutions to help you fix that biggest challenge in your business today. If I do that for you, are you open to having a second coffee with me?
I love that. And I think so many loan officers miss this. So many realtors miss this is they think all we can do is give them loans. I'm like, this is something that we share in common. I mean, I am voracious at acquiring knowledge. I think that's an ADD gift is I've got to have something to entertain my mind. So I'm always looking for challenges to solve, things to know out there. So it's funny that you said that. I was taught way back when my in-laws were in the Amway business. You guys can cut this out, but that was where I got my sales training. It was my very first sales training I ever had. And they had great learning systems there. If nothing else, you had people that were millionaires that were reading books and figuring out what was most important to them and sharing them with me. So it cut out all the chaff, right? So only got good stuff. So this was from Alan Pease. What's your number one priority in life and why? What's your big why? Why did you choose that? Why is it important to you? Tell me again why you chose that. What would be the consequences of not achieving that? And does that bother you? So that's what they call his 5 questions. It's on page 24 of the book. So I'm glad you shared that because it's you got to go there.
Yeah. And I think you've got to go there. But I mean, I love your chapter 4, outwork your competition. And it's kind of like I think I was making this comment the other day with someone that like I don't think work-life balance is BS. I promise you I don't. But I think there's also seasons you've got to go through that you're going to be unbalanced.
Have you heard Kai talk about this with the 4-burner stove?
Yeah. And when I look at that, every fourth quarter, I am unbalanced. Every fourth quarter. Because my fourth quarter hustle becomes my first quarter muscle.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter hustle becomes my first quarter muscle. And if you look through those lenses, like I'll do my vacations and lifestyle like Q1, Q2, Q3, but like I bunker down and I put in 80-hour work weeks all into Q4 to get everything off the ground so I can transform the following year.
Yeah.
And January 1 rolls around, I am ahead of the curve.
Right.
I'm ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, when everybody else is taking off that time. I've always coached on that as well. I mean, there's more business to be had in December because everybody else is sleeping.
Yeah. And I think that understanding that, so that's what I feel about your chapter. But in your words, what does outwork your competition mean?
I think it's changing a little bit because of AI out there. I think it used to be just knowing more and getting back to understanding what originators are doing these days. There's things that you can do for knowledge shortcuts. I mean, you can set up agents that have all the guidelines in there and ask a question, have it right there. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think a lot of people look at the really successful people out there and they have this victim mentality on what did they do to get that. They got lucky. And what that chapter of my book meant to me was mean, I had people that looked at me like that when I was playing golf on a high level. And the reality was, when they were out drinking beer and driving up and down Main Street in a small town in West Texas I grew up, I was oftentimes over on the putting green practicing my chipping. Or I was trying to hit this delicate wedge shot to a short pin, with backspin on it from a lie with no grass on it, because I knew that was going to give me an advantage sometimes. I wanted to have all the shots out there. And it's easy to look at that guy and point a finger at him and say, he's lucky or he's arrogant or anything like that. And there's going to be a little bit of that to anybody that's successful in anything. Because if you don't have that self-confidence, sometimes it may come off as arrogance. And I'm as humble as the next guy. I don't like arrogant people out there, but you've got to have that confident level that sometimes may come off as cocky or what have you. One, to play golf, probably two, to be successful in the mortgage business or any other high achieving thing. But the reason why I think I had it as a golfer is I earned it. I was trying to tell this guy, nobody handed this to me. It was a sacrifice. I outworked everybody. There wasn't anybody in my town that spent as much time practicing golf at the age group that I was. And if you look at it, even on the regional level, I ended up getting second in the region in Texas that year and went on to play in the state tournament. If you just go by with the work put in, I was probably number 2 in the region of the work that's put in. And I just think that's true to any degree. So if you're willing to work hard or work harder than anybody else, and you weren't going to give up, persistence that's the equalizer.
Well, I think early in my career, I wanted to be proud of being the hardest working person in the room.
Yeah.
Middle part of my career, I wanted to be proud of being the smartest working person in the room.
Yeah.
This chapter of my career, I'm wanting to be proud of being the hardest working and the smartest working person in the room. So we've got 2 minutes left, and I want to give you the closing thoughts. So my favorite chapter of your whole entire book, hopefully this is if you see it as a compliment, is Practice with Purpose. So chapter 13.
Yeah.
So I'm sure you've touched a ton of hearts, a lot of great nuggets from this podcast, and thank you for sharing your wisdom. But share that last piece with them as a closing thought so they feel inspiration about practicing with purpose.
I looked over kind of the book. I'm just going to be honest. It's been a while since I've read my own book, but I looked over it in preparation for the conversation today.
Just for the record, if you asked me what's chapter 4 of your book, I'd have no flipping clue. Hey, what's chapter 13? I'm like, what's the name of it? I'll tell you all about it. But what's
right? Exactly. So from a golf perspective, practicing with purposes, I see people go out on the driving range all the time and they're just busting balls. Unless you're going out there working on something, whether it's timing, tempo, shot creation, you're really just wasting your time. What you're doing is reinforcing bad habits you probably already have. So how that's going to relate to what you're doing in your business or in your life, I think it's like you said, it's an evaluation. And this is going to be a plug for coaching, but sometimes you may not know what you need to be working on. What is the purpose that you're doing? It could be finding out what your why is, and starting with why. And a good coach, and anybody that's worth their salt, and Kai does this, I do this, we'll give you a free session, 30, 45 minutes, or just like what you dove into, those clarifying questions, Alan Pease's 5 questions. What's your number one goal in life, number one priority? That just sets you apart from everybody else. And when you are asking somebody else that and just shutting up and listening and letting them tell you that, you know how much different that sets you apart from everybody else. But if you haven't ever had the opportunity for somebody to do that to you, I would recommend you tee up a time, me, Wally, Kai, anybody that's going to coach out there, and let them kind of get down to what it is. Because when you figure out, just like Wally said, what is that thing that I'm doing that most needs improvement, and start doing that, where you're not spending 20 years, 1 year at a time. You're actually spending 20 years in the mortgage business.
That's absolutely awesome, man. I love that. I love the transparency. I love the purpose of that, the intentionality of that. And I think, unfortunately, you just described me, and I need to do a better job of working on my golf game with purpose. And if it's, like you said, if it's grip, tempo, posture, I think to me, the worst part of my golf game is posture.
Yeah.
and the shoulders slouching over. And I think the challenge is you sit behind a desk all day, you're sitting behind a computer, and it's, but when I know there's a tournament coming up, like before the club championship or a member guest or something, then I'm on the standing desk. I'm always doing so much more mobility work, and it opens up the chest more, the shoulders go back, and I'm much better golfer.
Right.
But during the winter months right now, focused on business, have not been working on mobility, which is causing a little more over the top than I like.
Yeah.
So, but all right, Coach Wade Conway, thank you so much for your time. I know you're really, really busy, and if loan officers, if you've got this and you want to reach out to Wade, he's all over social. So reach out to him through social media and set up a coaching call with him. And you guys let me know what I can do to help.
Appreciate it.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you.